Alright, hi everybody. Today I'm going to show you how I managed to successfully install and set up MySQL in such a way that I could write C++ application on my computer. Yep, so this is you've probably come across this before on YouTube. So what I aim to do here is to do a more updated version of it. So by the way, here's the system specs. So system specs behind this tutorial is that I'm using Windows 10 Professional. This is based on a 64-bit machine. One of the good tutorials I came across previously on YouTube says that that this will not work on a 64-bit, but only a 32-bit. But somehow I managed to get it working, and I'm going to show you how I managed to do it. And then I am using Visual Studio Community 2017. I'm not using code blocks. So I guess most of us are using VS 2017 now. If it matters, I'm not sure if it does. The .NET Framework version with this tutorial is a 4.7.03056. The MySQL community server and connector for C++ version in this case is 8.0.11. Alright, so this tutorial is made on 20th July 2018. Alright, so the steps that we're going to take here, first we need to download and install the MySQL installer. Then what we're going to do is that we're going to install MySQL community server as well as connector C++. We're going to update the relevant directories in Visual Studio Community 2017. I'm going to code, build, and run, and I'm going to prove it to you that this setup would work. Note that there is no need. In my case, I had no need of using Boost. Boost is a pretty good set of libraries. I don't, but it's huge, and I've installed it before. It's massive. It takes a lot of time, and just to have a just to have a simple C++ application that runs SQL statements on MySQL does not need the Boost library. So yep, if you need a Boost library, go look up other tutorials. I'm not going to cover it here. Alright, so without further ado, let's download the MySQL installer, and I already have it here on my web browser. Download the latest GA release. In this case, I'm going to download the smaller file. The MySQL installer web community version, this particular MSI would require you to be constantly connected to the internet, but you're going to save a lot more time and hard disk space, and I'm going to show it to you here. So I'm going to click download. I'm going to download it. I can completely ignore the login and sign up, go straight to no thanks, just start my download, let it run. Okay, just give a little bit more time. If you're using a faster PC and a faster internet connection, of course, speed will be different from what you're seeing here. Okay, so I'm running the MSI right now. We're going to follow the steps in there. For the sake of this demo, I am just going to use some very simple, do a very simple setup. In your case, if you might have more unique requirements, please do the necessary changes. But my recommendation is that if you are doing this setup for the first time and you're not sure whether you are going to do it successfully, I recommend just doing it once. And this demo is also run on a virtual machine. So if you are using a virtual machine anyway, yeah, just remember to use your snapshots. Okay, so here, for my case, I'm being asked to upgrade my MySQL installer, and I shall do it here. In your case, it might be required, it might not be, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna let it run. It's not gonna take too long. Fast forward if you want, but we're about done. Okay, so we are almost there. Alright, so what you're going to see now is the product catalog. Here's the license agreement. Read it if you will, and if you do or do not, just click on I accept the license terms anyway. Click on next. You'll be given a choice of setup type. In my case, I chose and I will choose custom. Click on next. Alright, what's going to be covered here in the tutorial, I am only going to need to install MySQL Server. Note that it's 8.0.11 and this is the 64-bit version. I've read from somewhere on the internet that MySQL Server is now only available on 64 bits and no longer in 32 bits. I'm not sure how true that is, but I'm going to take that as true. Anyway, I'm using a 64-bit machine. In this case, I'm going to install MySQL connector for C++. So, okay, I'm going to click on, back to this, MySQL Server. I'm going to click the arrow here. That will be the product that I'm going to install. The next will be connector C++. And I'm going to add these two in. So basically, the package options for server, I'm going to leave it alone. And for connector C++, there's only one. So once I'm done with this, I click next. Alright, and it's not downloaded yet, and I'm just going to click execute. This might take a while, so feel free to fast forward if you want to. Again, if you're using a much faster internet connection, then the download timing will be a lot faster. So pardon me if you hear any construction noise in the background. Alright, I'm just going to let this run. It's not going to take too long anyway. Now connector C++ is already downloaded. Installing that right now, almost done. Now we're installing server. A little bit slower. Do. Okay, so when it's done, click on next. Okay, so the first thing that we will be configuring is the MySQL server. Click on next. In my case, I chose standalone as MySQL server. And I left this alone as development computer. I left the ports at the default at 3306. Click on next. Use a strong password. Click on next. For this demo, I'm just going to use password as password for lack of creativity. When you're going production, just be sure to change the password to something else more secure. I am not going to add a new user here in this tutorial, and if I leave this blank, then to access your database, you just use root as a user, ROOT. Alright, so click on next. I am leaving these alone. Click on next and click on execute. Give it some time. It's not going to take a long while at all while the configuration is being applied now. So you notice that if you use MySQL installer, setup is probably going to be a lot quicker and easier. So yeah, kudos to Oracle for this. And yep, just wait and it's done. So once it's done, click on finish. You'll be shown this again and just click on next and actually you're done. You can copy the log to the clipboard if you like. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to click finish. Okay, so now we're done here. The next thing that you want to do is, you've already done step 1 and step 2. The next thing you want to do is to update the relevant include and lib directories into, in my case, Visual Studio Community 2017. So I've already gotten a project set up. In this case, this is a Windows console application. I've got this code already prepared, and I might make this available. Just look out for the link in the description. And yep, I won't be going through all of this code. So first things first, it's time to set up the directories. If you do not set up the directories, you'll notice that some of there will be errors in the code. There will be classes that are not defined, and there will be include files that are not available as well. So we're gonna have to fix this. Okay, so here's what you're gonna do. You right click on your project, go to properties. Okay, in this case, I go to my configuration manager first. You have to change the solution configuration to release. For some reasons, I'm sure this is explained somewhere. If you're going to run MySQL applications, it does not work on debug. It will only work on release. So I'm going to change this to release. I'm going to change this to x64. Apparently, it does not seem to work on x86 anymore. Okay, so we make sure that release and x64 are selected. Deploy is not going to work here anyway, so just ignore that. Click on close. All right, so now you're back in your property pages. Under configuration, I guess best practice, select all configurations. Make sure that it is indeed x64. The first thing you want to do is that you want to go to, under configuration properties, go to C/C++, click on general. You want it to include the include directories. Click on the arrow here, or drop down, click on edit. Alright, so you're gonna have to put in the include directories here. In my case, I already have them sorted out here. If you install MySQL based on the default settings, the default folders, this should likely be your path. So let's include the connector plus C++ include path directory first. Okay, and it has to be in this order. Connector C++ first, followed by MySQL server /include. Okay, at any time in your projects, if you require to use boost, just make sure that you put your boost folder right after both connector and server include folder. So when you're done, click OK. The next thing is go to linker. Under general, this is where you have to define the folder for your libraries. Do the same. Click on edit, and in my case, the connector C++ lib folder. It doesn't stop just at lib. You have to put /opt. Why I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason, but I just don't know. Then the next one, the same order, MySQL server lib folder. Okay, so when you're done, click OK. Okay, so now that you've told Visual Studio where to look for the additional library directories, the next thing is to go to input to tell Visual Studio which lib file you need. Okay, so in this case, what's needed for this project, MySQL cpp.con.lib and libmysql.lib. So you just need these two. Click OK. Make sure that they are here, and that should be it. So I'm going to click OK now. Let's see. Will the errors disappear? So it's passing the included files right now, and apparently, so it seems to be well and good. Okay, so what we're going to want to do next is to code, to build, and to run to prove that the setup is correct and that you could run MySQL commands on your C++ application. But before that, what you want to do is that you need to set up a database for testing. And fortunately, in this case, I've already gotten the steps created. Okay, so what you want to go to is MySQL 8.0 command line client. Click on that. And remember the password that you keyed in earlier. So just in my case, it was password. Depending on what password you chose during the setup, enter. And once you're connected into MySQL 8.0 command line client, create a database. So in my case, I've gotten this once prepared already. And there you go. So what I've done is that I've created a database called testdb and created a table called test and inserted 3 lines of data in here. So these are the lines of data: ID, name, score, and a whole set of stuff over here. Alright, so the code, back to Visual Studio 2017, the code that I've created here earlier, what it basically does is that it would want to first connect to the database, and these are the credentials. First, this is the host, this is the user, which is root, the password, which is password. We want to connect to testdb database, and so we include that here. And we are also going to base this on the default port 3306. What will happen first is that we will try to attempt to connect, and if we successfully connect to the database, we will run a select statement, and from the select statement we will be able to get the data and have them put in an array of called row, and we will print this out line by line onto the console. And if it fails, we will show you the error message. And if it does not fail, if the connection of database fail, we will do the same. Okay, so without further ado, what we want to do is that we go to debug. There's a choice between start debugging, which is F5, and the other option is to start without debugging, which is Control F5. So in this case here, I'm going to select the second one, because if you select the first one, once the application is done running, it will close the console window, and we don't want that because we want to see what appears, what's being displayed by the application. All right, so let's click on this, Control F5, and let it build, and whoopsie daisy, we have an error. But just to let you know that this was anticipated. Right, so what you're looking at here is that a particular DLL file called libmysql, it has to be present. I've not found a better way of doing this except that this particular file has to be in the same folder as your executable. So this is what we're going to do here, and it does turn out that it's not just this DLL file that's required, but also in my case the libeay32.dll and the ssleay32.dll. Alright, so we're going to have to place these 3 files respectively into the executable directory. So let's go there. In my case, libmysql.dll is in this particular folder. It should be the same as for you as well. If not, then try to locate it and find it. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm now in that particular folder. I will copy this and I will paste it in. For my case, it is this particular folder. This is where the built executable file is stored by Visual Studio. In your case, it's likely going to be similar here, just accept that the username is your name and not the same as what you see here. Alright, so copy that DLL file here. Alright, and the next 2 files as well. In my case, it is stored in MySQL server /bin. There's probably a smarter way of linking this particular folder on Visual Studio. I should have tried to do that first before making this tutorial, but I did not. So for the interest of time, I'm just going to locate where they are, copy both files into the executable folder as well. Okay, so when we have the respective DLL files in here, it should work now. So let's just run this. And there you go. The application is successful. It has connected to the database, and it has run the select statement, gotten the data out, and displayed line by line here on the console. So this is how you can set this up, especially if you're doing this somewhere along the line of 20th July 2018. Yeah, and once again, I let me just flash back the specs. So this might be useful reference to you. I'll try to make these files all available for you to download. Please check the description. And yes, I wish you well in your coding endeavors, and I wish you success. Thank you.